everybody, I'm Joshua.
And I'm Caleb.
We're super brothers.
We are.
Which means we're related as brothers.
Yes, sir.
Guys, I know this sounds silly coming from me, but we're talking about a lot of sensitive things in today's episode. And so if you do have younger children at home that watch these, maybe watch it first and see if all the information we're about to give out is something you want to share with your kids. And if you don't blame me and get mad, because I know I'm the offensive one.
Okay, guys, focusing on Satan's plans for the future. You may think he's a moron and that he knows his end is in the lake of fire. Why is he working so hard to get all these plans come to pass? But he thinks
a stubborn moron.
He really does think in the eternal. He thinks beyond time. His plans begin thousands of years in advance. He patiently waits for them to come to fruition. But if he can get us to become so self-absorbed in the here and the now, our small bubble of a world, then we become boiled like frogs in a pot of hot water. Until before we know it, we're
gross French food.
We're in Satan's time-compromised world, or if we fight against it, we're affected by those who he's already persuaded against them. So the point being is, guys, we want to give an example of how Satan plans in advance long-term, and we're going to look at the rise of Islam. Quick example. No, it's not offensive whatsoever.
Oh, no. Okay.
Currently, the Pew Research Center, these are statistics, say there are 2 billion Muslims in the world. There are 2.38 billion Christians. And they claim that over the next few decades that Islam will pass up Christianity by mere volume. It's going to be a fast overtaking. We're already seeing that in Europe, guys, with the rise of Islam. They are overtaking Europe peacefully by outbreeding them, literally by outbreeding them, because the citizens of Europe are still holding to that mindset that we can't have too many children, we can't overpopulate. So Islam has come in through a advanced planning method to outbreed them, and you see the Sharia courts popping up in England. You see the violence in France and all these countries, and the madrasa schools. It's very interesting. Many years ago, in the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, a imam gave this interesting plan. He says, we're going to use the migrant crisis to take over Europe. And he says, Europe was facing a demographic disaster, and we must breed with the Westerners to create our own children, our own soldiers, and Allah willing, we will trample them underfoot, is what he said.
Wow.
So it was already planned. They knew what they were doing.
Well, the late Muammar Gaddafi said, there are signs that Allah will grant Islam victory in Europe. Without swords, without guns, without conquest, the 50 million Muslims in Europe will turn into a Muslim continent within a few decades.
Recently, I saw on the news in Sweden, they are dealing with what they call a wave of gang violence. The Prime Minister said there are 2 separate institutions of people living in Sweden. They're the Swedish people, and they are the Islamic refugees, and they do not want to integrate themselves into society. He was explaining how they accepted the most immigrants during the Obama era's Arab Spring. That was when the more radical Muslims were wiping out the less radical Muslims. Like in Syria, people were being wiped out, and so there was a call to accept all these migrants around the world. And Europe, Sweden accepted the most, in Germany and all that. But if you look at the statistics, no matter, the news didn't get it right, 90% of those immigrants that were coming out, they weren't the poor women and children that were dying. They were the fighting-age men, jihadists that were trying to integrate themselves into European society. So you can see Satan has planned this takeover far in advance, and they're succeeding in their plot.
These long-term plans.
It's a long-term plan.
Diabolical. 1 Corinthians 16:13 says, be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour.
So we're just now seeing Satan's plans come to pass when it comes to America, Josh. If the church had been awake to stand up when Satan was testing the water, he's just seeing what little things he could get away with here and there. Without any opposition from the church, we could have been able to stop it. But we wake up one morning and bam, prayers kicked out of public school. 10 Commandments can't be there anymore. Abortion's legalized. Same-sex marriage is legalized. And it's all because of our inaction. We didn't want to offend anyone. We didn't want to preach the gospel. Let them live in their own sin, and they won't mess with us. But Satan wasn't happy with his own comforts already going to hell. He wants to take your children. He wants to indoctrinate us and create a whole new generation that follows after him. And so that's why today we want to go over these plans and plots the enemy has used lately to attack your children and to create a whole new generation that follows after him.
Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Yes.
Kids today growing up in the public school system are literally growing up in a war zone. Spiritually.
It's spiritually and even physically sometimes. Like we said, with the absence of God and the Ten Commandments and all those things being preached, we're getting environmental paganism being taught, evolutionary origins, CRT, critical race theory.
So many acronyms.
So many LGBT agenda, anything anti-God and atheists, it's pushed down their throats. And it's sometimes it's even blatant. I just saw in the news story, the after-school Satan Club is being pushed by the Church of Satan.
So just in case you thought your environmental club didn't have anything to do with the end times, if you are a part of the Pennsylvania after-school Satan Club, you are involved in something horribly wrong.
They're trying to pass that in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, because they had so much success in Illinois. Josh, recently, Reverend Franklin Graham was quoted saying, people have turned their backs on God. Our educators have taken God out of schools. Our politicians have taken God out of politics. Our nation is not the better for it. Our nation is worse. Graham added that people don't know how to tell the truth. They have no clue what the truth is. It seems that we are going from bad to worse. And that's why first topic we want to focus on is the CRT, critical race theory that's being taught, Josh.
That's what that stands for.
It's supposed to be an anti-racist doctrine, but it's literally teaching your kids that if you are born this specific pigment or skin color, that you will, without question, forever persecute and be a perpetrator of systemic racism against the darker skin color people.
Is that real?
They claim it is. So if you're albino, if you're Scandinavian,
so glad I'm tan right
if
now.
You're a ginger, then no matter how good your heart may be, no matter how good your intentions, you're going to carry out some acts of racism against those poor people.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. I didn't know I was racist. I'm not racist.
It's tragic, guys. It honestly is, because it also teaches dark-skinned or black-skinned people that they will forever be victimized by the white man, that they are to expect persecution. They're expecting to get the bad end of the stick, and it creates a victim mentality among them. That's not scriptural. It's not scriptural, because we know that all evil does not come from your skin color. You're not born into it. It's a matter of the heart.
That's crazy. Example, in California, third graders were made to deconstruct their racial identity and rank themselves according to their power and privilege in school.
Okay.
Teachers told students that they lived in a dominant culture of white, middle-class, cisgender, educated, able-bodied Christian English speakers.
I don't even know what half of those mean.
I don't either. I think a cyst is like pus and stuff under the skin, right?
The Arizona Department of Education recently created a program for parents to make sure your kids aren't racist. It's called the Equity Toolkit. Everybody should get it, because it claims babies as young as 3 months old can be racist. Because, I quote, they look more at faces that match the race of their caregiver. So if they're looking up at a white face, it makes them racist.
Friggin' racist babies, man.
I'm telling you, the materials also insist that people who have a black partner, a black child, or a black friend can still be racist.
Recently, News Home Depot was handing out training pamphlets to their workers. It's important to be trained to be able to be good at your job, right? Some of these pamphlets are called Leading Practices of Unpacking Privilege. It asks employees to check their privilege, whether it be white privilege, class privilege, Christian privilege, cisgender privilege, able-bodied privilege, or heterosexual privilege, in order to quell inborn inherent racist tendencies.
So you're born racist, they say, and so this is how you're
never a choice. You're just
stop being racist. Josh, there's even a everyday racism app you can get on your phone. You can take the quiz to see how racist you really are and how you're really persecuting poor minorities by walking out in public every day with your shiny skin. If you have shiny, we're not. We're kind of dark. See, we're Jewish. We're olive skin, you know?
Romans 5:12. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, and thus death spread to all men because all sinned.
That's true. It's only by God's grace and mercy that we can be free from like a mentality of racism or even a victim mentality. And that does not come with being born a certain way. It just comes by sin. And all have sinned. And Yeshua can grant us freedom, a freedom for the individual who may hate Jewish people. You know, Jews, most persecuted any people throughout history, we are the most persecuted. And if Jews took on that victim mentality, we wouldn't cease to exist.
Not the award you're looking for.
Yeah, it's not the award you're looking for, but we don't want to walk in that victim mentality.
Ephesians 1:3-8 says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in the heavenly realms with every spiritual blessing in Christ. For he chose us in him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight. In love, he predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ, in accordance with his pleasure and will. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins in accordance with the riches of God's grace that he lavished on us."
So that's really the answer to racism. That's really the answer to all the problems. It's not by policy proposals. It's not by the equity toolkit or a specific app. It's really by Yeshua's blood. And Yeshua makes it clear in the Bible that he sees us all the same. We are all one in Messiah.
Galatians 3:28 says, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you all are one in Christ Jesus."
That's right. So Josh, what about another curriculum that's being taught to indoctrinate our children into believing these different gender identities and sexual orientation and push the transgender movement to our children as young as kindergarten?
Kindergarten? Why is there any need in kindergarten to talk about any of that stuff?
I don't know, but Mark 10:6-8, Yeshua said, "But at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." Well, this was a great mystery that Paul said. This relationship was supposed to be a shadow of the things to come, a shadow of our relationship with Messiah, we being the body, the bride, and him being the husband, the head. And so that's why the institution of marriage is attacked so vehemently by Satan. And he wants to corrupt the perception of what man and woman is supposed to be so that we won't have a relationship with the Father and with Yeshua.
Wow, recently in Florida, there's been news on the creating of the parental rights education bill.
Yeah, everybody's seen that.
A bill designed to not only keep parents informed on what state is teaching their kids, but prohibit the state from teaching their younger children such things as gender identity and sexual orientation from kindergarten through the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
And this has caused an uproar in the media.
That's true. And guys, this shouldn't even be a question of what a parent's rights should be. They should not be teaching kids this young anything. Any sexual action, to question their bodies and what they look like. It's up to the parent to teach your children about sex, not up to the state. But the state-run education facilities are aiding, abetting, and they're really grooming children into a life of confusion, into a life of compromise, and a life of questioning what God made them to be in their specialness. Recently, one of hundreds of similar occurrences, guys, a California mother discovered that teachers in the Spreckle School District were coaching her 12-year-old daughter on becoming a boy, choosing a boy's name, and they hid the plan from the family.
That's just insane.
It's happening today. And we see parents rising up in these school board meetings because they see the curriculum that's being taught to their kids. You see several books that have come out. They say books like Homegoing and Genderqueer Memoir were read by parents during these school board meetings, and they were silenced because they said that's too explicit material. We cannot hear that on the air because so many kids are watching. Oh, the kid's going to watch a school board meeting. But it was very ironic, Josh, that one of the parents that stood up in Florida to read Genderqueer and was opposing it was actually a homosexual father. He said he didn't want his kids hearing this material.
One such book offered to kids ages 4-8 reads, "This is Ruthie. She is a transgender girl. That means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy, until she grew a little older, old enough to tell everyone that she's actually a girl." Already in elementary school, teachers are putting these ideas in.
They're putting non-binary on the board. They're putting transgender on the board before kids can even learn to multiply. Kids are graduating high school, guys, and you know this is in America. They can't read, they can't write, they can't add. You go through a drive-through, you hand a kid a 20, get change. You know they can't add. You got programs like a Common Core and No Child Left Behind. It's prohibiting them from learning. In certain school districts around the states, they're saying you question whether 2 + 2 is 4. No. It's what you want it to be. But they're not taught to learn. But what they are taught by the time they graduate is how to have gay sex, how to get a transgender operation, sex change, or anything like that. And it's horrifying and sad.
Maine's Department of Education reports that between 13% and 18% of public high school students say they're lesbian, gay, bisexual, or unsure of their sexual identity.
Josh, New Jersey this fall there's been a lot of opposition that they're going to start a new curriculum to 1st through 5th graders, teaching them in the 1st grade lesson plan gender identity, and gender role stereotypes. One lesson plan states, you might feel like you're a boy even if you have body parts that some people might tell you are girl parts. You might feel like you're a girl even if you have body parts that some people might tell you are boy parts. And you may not feel like you're a boy or a girl, but you're a little bit of both. No matter how you feel, you're perfectly normal. Josh, I have a 1st grader. She's going into 2nd grade. Do you know how impressionable these kids are? Their teachers say anything to them that's gospel. They soak it up like a sponge. They'll even believe their teachers over you sometimes.
That's true.
This is horrifying. I don't want my kids learning this.
The 5th grade lesson plans teach kids as young as 10 that puberty blockers are an acceptable way to manage puberty, and that masturbating a few times a day is a healthy way to relieve stress. Within the plans, students watch animated videos created by the organization Amaze with such titles as Puberty and Transgendered Youth, Masturbation, Totally Normal, and Sexual Orientations Explained, Lesbian, Gay, Heterosexual, and Bisexual.
I have a 5th grader going into 6th grade. I don't want her to learn that stuff either. Again, Reverend Franklin Graham recently said, and I quote, all this trash and all this filth that the left is pushing on our students, that can be turned around if Christian men and women ran for school boards. He also said, I think the most important elected official is a school board member.
Isaiah 5:20 says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Romans 12:2, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God.
Josh, recently the current executive administration of the United States of America was pushing transgender rights that they guaranteed to students coming this fall, that they will be granted locker room access, bathroom access, access to sports competitions. And I have daughters, and I would not want someone who's identifying, a boy who's identifying as a female, going to that restroom with them, or someone who's got a sex change going to that restroom with them. Scary, it's perverse.
The latest release of iPhones have just included a pregnant man emoji and other gender neutral emojis so that you can text your truest self to your friends.
I don't know how often anybody's going to be using that, but that's interesting. Recently, the White House put a thing in our passports where you can mark X on the passport. If you don't want to put male or female, you can mark X. Imagine what confusion now it's going to cause if you go into another country and they read what are you? You're an X. I mean, straight crazy.
Disney made headlines because they opposed Florida's parental rights education bill, calling it the Don't Say Gay bill.
Yeah, and so they removed gender-specific pronouns from their theme parks. No more ladies and gentlemen, no more boys and girls. Disney executive producers have finally admitted to their gay agenda. LaToya Ravenel, in producing the upcoming Disney musical series, Rise Up and Sing Out, and the animated series, The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, she said, and I quote, "The showrunners were super welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda." She said, "I don't have to be afraid to have these two characters kiss in the background. I was just wherever I could adding queerness, and no one would stop me, and no one was trying to stop me."
Recent Disney Pixar movie, Turning Red,
oh, yes.
Which I didn't know anything about and started to put on, and immediately, thank the Lord, in like 3 minutes, my kids were like, I don't think we're supposed to be watching this, and we turned it off. It not only does it teach the kids necromancy, which is communicating with dead ancestors, but it's themed for a child undergoing menstruation. The main character turns into a giant red panda, and at the end of the movie, pushed the not-so-subtle pro-choice line of my body, my choice with the quote, my panda, my choice.
Yeah, and there was a lot of homosexual scenes that were removed from that, but once people heard the lobbyists for LGBT agenda, they fought back, and now Disney says, don't worry, when you go see Buzz Lightyear Star Command in the summer, it will have a same-sex couple throughout the movie, and they kiss throughout, so just in case you were worried.
In case you were worried. Ephesians 5:15-17 says, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is.
That's true, and I find it a bizarre contradiction, Josh, that they're telling you you're born this way, they're telling kids they're born this way. No matter what your DNA says, your DNA always tells the truth. No matter what, sex change you get, they're saying this is something of nature that happens. But when you turn around and you say, God created me, I was fearfully and wonderfully made, they say, no, you're an accident of nature. So how can you say you were made this way, but yet you're an accident at the same time? It's a contradiction.
There's been several instances recently, too, in schools where kids have had their Bibles removed for reading their Bibles. In Illinois, a second grader, was reading her Bible during recess and had it confiscated.
That's mind-boggling, Josh. You see, Satan is threatened by a little child with a kid's Bible. He should be, because she can speak the name of Yeshua and command him to flee. I mean, right. It's honestly true. Guys, it's not a shock that we're seeing violence pop up in schools and in churches a lot. Recently, we saw a lot of gun violence in the news. It's very sad. In churches, but just anywhere as well. But you're seeing it occur a lot in churches and in schools.
And removing the Second Amendment is not the answer to this. It's not guns that are the problem.
Yeah,
it is the heart. It is the heart of the individual who is using the gun that causes the problem in here. Proverbs 4:23 through 27 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from evil."
I'm sure many of you have had a friend, heard a story, know some connection with someone who has been harmed in a large mass shooting or a school shooting or church shooting. In my day, it was September 5th, 1999, Wedgwood Baptist Church shooting, that's right. 7 people were killed. It affected our church. There was people there that went to our church. Affected my wife. One of the girls that were killed was one of her classmates. And since then, we've had, Sandy Hook Elementary. We've had Virginia Tech, Sutherland Springs Church. They rate in the top 5 shootings, most deadliest in all of history. And everybody knows the Columbine High School. 13 were killed. And purportedly, the students who were doing the killing went around and they asked the other students, "Do you believe in God?" They would say yes, and then they would shoot them. The enemy knows what he's doing. His plan is to steal, kill, and destroy, and he continues to do so. And these stories are popping up. They're becoming more frequent as time goes on.
And we're seeing that now in churches, one of the main focuses and concerns is security. So pastors are now having to carry guns and weapons. We know that these are all symptomatic fixes, but really, as we've been saying, that this is an issue of the heart. Only God can change people's hearts, not just changing the policy through what you can and can't carry, but God can change their heart. Matthew 10, starting at verse 24, says, "The student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for students to be like their teachers and servants like their masters. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebub, how much more the members of his household? Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it."
I'm sad to say, guys, the reason we are in this situation, like we prefaced, is because the church didn't do anything. We stood by, we as Christians didn't do anything when our children were starting to be indoctrinated with this. We didn't want to raise them. We pushed them off to the state to raise them. We were too busy making a living. And I know how hard it is for both parents having to work and make a living, to even pay for private school. My kids are in private school. It is a great sacrifice, but that's the choice that I made. But now's the time. Now is the time to teach our children and raise them in the fear of the admonition of the Lord. Now is the time to stand up for truth in love, to speak the truth in love. Because this is just going to get worse and worse.
We know that the topics in this episode are very sensitive topics today. We know that in every facet of life, these topics are things that are being pushed from a sympathy perspective, trying to explain that these individuals who are dealing with these situations are the ones who are being harmed and who are being victimized. And that's why so many people have rallied, because they're being manipulated into believing that the heart of the conservative believer is hate against somebody who's being victimized. But guys, do not let your offense be found in this. We are not angry at anybody. We are not trying to get you to victimize anybody, and we're not sitting here attacking anybody. What we're saying is that the enemy is using confusion and lies and manipulation in order to redefine the idea of truth and redefine God's creation. And it's time to take a stand. Not in a stand out of anger, not in a stand just to attack for the sake of attacking, and not in a stand that says that we are unaware of what you're dealing with. It's just literally defining the word of truth and saying truth is truth and a lie is a lie. What is right, and what is wrong, and that truth is black and it is white, and it cannot be blurred through a gray line like the world wants to say today. It is not based off of what you feel.
Yeah.
It is not based off of your personal conviction alone, but it is something that God himself established.
And we thank you for watching us, and we hope you join us next time, guys.
Please join us next time.
You probably won't, Josh.
It's 25 minutes in, that's why.